And this is Dina, the court reporter. The judge is running just a few minutes late, so I just wanted to let y'all know that she'll be on as soon as she can.
Amen.
Okay. John, we're going to talk get a little closer. Yeah. I don't hear anything. Well, there's a lot of people claim to begin at that one. These people. I think that's Kenneth Owen. Yeah, that's Kenneth Owen. And this.
That doesn't mean that we oppose them.
Okay, judges. I don't know who this is. Maybe it's just a court report. That looks like-
All right, I'm going to go ahead. I'm Judge Monica Purdy, and I'm going to call the 95th District Court's dismissal docket at this time. When you hear your case called, I need you to announce and let the court know the status of your case. First on the court's docket, cause number DC 20-11317, Raymond Stevens versus USMD Hospital at Fort Worth, LP et al.
Your Honor, I'm David Benford. I'm here for the plaintiff, Mr. Stevens.
All right. Do we have anyone else on?
Yes, Your Honor. David Lunningham. I'm here for USMD.
All right. Thank you. What is the status of this case, gentlemen?
Your
We
Honor,
have settled.
the case has been resolved. We have settlement documentation out. I think there's one signature left. We've actually received some of the settlement funds, but we are waiting for the remainder. I anticipate that maybe Mr. Lunningham can give you more information. I anticipate that any day. So it's all but done. We just need to get that last section of portion of settlement funds before we can non-suit the case.
Yes,
All right. Counsel?
Yes, that's right. Your Honor, the case is resolved. Papers have been signed. And the only thing remaining is the settlement check from my the insurance carrier that's funding our portion of the settlement. The person involved with that had a family issue and was out for a bit. The check is on the way, so all good there, but we don't have it in hand yet. I expect it any day now.
All right. So is 2 weeks or 3 weeks going to give you enough time in which to get that done?
I believe, Your Honor, that 3 weeks is certainly enough time to get it done. I expect it sooner than that, but certainly if we reset for 3 weeks, I expect to be that reappearing would be unnecessary.
All right, this matter will be reset on the court's dismissal docket and you'll be notified of that new date and time. I'm resetting it for 3 weeks.
Appreciate
Your
the
Honor.
court's understanding and we'll look for that notice.
All right, thank you so much. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 21-15459, Theodoras Maltezos versus Betty Duncan Davis et al. Do I have any parties on the video conference with respect to that case?
Yes, Your Honor. This is Kenneth Owen for the plaintiff.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. Anyone for the defendant?
This is Celia Sams for the defendant, and my client is here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Owen, what is the status of this case?
The status of the case as it stands right now is we are waiting on one final signature for the affidavit of the plaintiff. We have received the last known address and have our default judgment prepped and ready to go. We would just ask the court for 21 days. And the only reason I'm asking that is because the first 2 weeks of October, I'll be out of the country and won't have access to complete any of the filings, and those additional 7 days would benefit.
All right, Mrs. Sams, did you have anything to add for this case?
I don't have any objection to a 21-day reset.
All right, it will be reset for 21 days and you will be notified of that new date and time. Obviously, if you get your default judgment in prior to that time, you won't have to appear, but currently it's reset for 21 days.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 22-02174, Mia Dunn versus Lucidia Martinez Mendez et al. Do I have any parties on that here on that case?
Nathan Barbera for the defendant.
All right. Anyone for the plaintiff? All right, Mr. Barbera, do you happen to know the status of this case?
Yes, Judge, and that's why I'm appearing today.
Hold on 1 second. I think that may be Mrs. Sams. If you can make sure you put your Zoom on mute because we're hearing feedback or conversation.
Sorry, Judge.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Barbera.
Thank you, Judge. We settled this case and I provided the settlement checks and the dismissal pleadings to plaintiff's counsel back in March. Plaintiff's counsel never filed the dismissal with prejudice, never filed the order. I sent a demand letter in July that he immediately filed the motion to dismiss and the order of dismissal with prejudice because he's cashed our settlement check, and he has not responded to that as well. So I would actually request the court set a status conference on this case and have plaintiff's counsel explain to the court why he has not filed the dismissal documents with prejudice that he is contractually obligated to do in the signed settlement agreement, and the fact that he's cashed my settlement checks.
Okay, and hold on 1 second. Somebody's joining us. All right. And obviously, a portion of that settlement or you all's discussions for the settlement was a dismissal with prejudice. Is that correct, Mr. Barbera?
It is in the signed agreement that plaintiff's counsel would file that, and he has not done so despite now being asked on 2 separate occasions.
Hold on a moment. All right, we will get that set for a status conference. Counsel, I don't have a date in which to provide to you, but you will get a notice of hearing from the court, and we'll get that set up on the docket here, okay?
Thank you very much, Judge.
All right, thank you. Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 22-04558, Pedro J. Hernandez versus Hollywood Continuing Care Center Ltd. Company et al. Hearing no announcements, that case will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 22-05726, Jarrett McClendon et al. Versus National Carriers Inc. et al. Hearing no announcements, that case will also be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 22-06775, Georgelle Holmes versus Eduardo Torres et al. Hearing no announcements, that case will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 07958, Abraham Sandoval versus Jose Arcides Flores. Hearing no announcements, that case will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 22-08800, Brian Sebastian Ramos versus Evelyn Miller.
Jason Miller.
I'm here, Judge.
All right, Mr. Rentenera, is somebody else, did someone else announce other than Mr. Rentenera?
No,
Yeah,
Judge, I'm sorry. There was, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, for defendant, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Rentenera, what's the status of this case?
Judge, we're just waiting on the check, I believe, but everything's been signed and dismissal should be filed as soon as we get the check.
All right, Mr. Miller, anything to add? Anything to add to this?
No, nothing to add, Your Honor.
I'll reset it for 3 weeks and you all will be notified of the new date and time, okay?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you,
All
Judge.
right, thanks so much. Next on the court's docket, DC 22-15224, TD Bank versus Melvin Smallwood. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 22-17502, Progressive County Mutual Insurance Company versus Lacole William Smith. Hearing no announcements, that case will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 1944, Ron Hernandez et al. Versus Augustine Cueva.
Guillermo Ramos, Your Honor, for the plaintiffs.
All right, Mr. Ramos, what is the status of this case?
Your Honor, we've been having some difficulty obtaining service upon the defendant. It looks like this is, there's a gate and there's some land. The property is registered to the defendant. We will be filing a motion for substitute service, although I am meeting with my client this next coming week. He believes he has a different address for the defendant, so we're asking that this be reset.
Mr. Ramos, I'll reset it for 30 days, but do your best to try to find this defendant, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. Can I be excused?
Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-04602, Dr. Marissa Horry versus the estate of Alan D. Rafferty. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 23-04691, USAA Casualty Insurance Company versus Salvador Avila et al.
Your Honor, Gigi Matar here on behalf of the plaintiff.
All right, Mrs. Matar, what is the status of this case?
It looks like this case just settled 2 days ago, Your Honor. So we are just going to be finalizing documentation, haven't even begun to finalize settlement documentation. So maybe 1 month, Your Honor, to retain on the docket so that we might be able to finalize our settlement documentation, receive checks, and then file the non-sue.
Okay, I will reset it for 3 weeks and you'll be notified of the new date and time, Mrs. Matar.
Okay, and Your Honor, I apologize. I was not fast enough to unmute myself.
All right.
For flying, I appreciate that though. On Progressive v. Williams Smith, it's DC 22-17502.
Okay, hold on.
It was maybe 3 earlier in the docket.
Progressive is the plaintiff, is that correct? Yes, so DC 22-17502, Progressive County Mutual Insurance Company versus Lacole William Smith. What's the status of that case?
Our default judgment was just filed today, Your Honor, so it should be in your pending queue there this morning.
Okay, all right, the court will make note of that and it will make sure that it reviews the default judgment that has been submitted. And assuming that everything is on par, the court will sign it and get it on its way. If not, you'll receive another dismissal notice. Okay, Ms. Matar?
Of course.
All right, thank you so much. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 04819 American Express National Bank versus Joanna Jimenez. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-04831, Gerardo Lara versus Danielle Wuge. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-04838, Ariel Shoulder versus Badeha P. Is it Abduhay?
Jennifer Reale here on behalf of the plaintiff, and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce the defendant's name.
Okay, I could barely hear you, counsel, but just provide the court with a status on this case.
Yes, Your Honor. I have been in contact with the insurance company for the defendant, and they should be filing an answer on his behalf here soon. So I'm just requesting another 3 weeks to give them time to file that answer.
All right, we will reset this matter for 3 weeks, and you'll be advised of the new date and time for the next dismissal docket hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-05055, Shenandoah Funding Trust versus Pamela I. Morrison. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket is DC 23-05059, Galaxy International Purchasing LLC versus Natalie Schreiber. All right, hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 23-05089, Geico County Mutual Insurance Company versus April Rochelle Hodge.
Gigi Matar here, Your Honor, on behalf of Geico.
All right, ma'am, what's the status of this case?
Unfortunately, we have just not been able to locate Ms. Hodge at this point. We have attempted several addresses, and at this point we'll either continue to look for new addresses or be non-suiting this case because we cannot locate her.
All right, so did you wish to file a non-suit or have the court to DWAP it?
I think if the court would give us another week, we're just waiting for our client's clearance to file the non-suit. I would appreciate it if the court would prefer to just adjudicate the case right now. I understand as well.
Okay, I'll go ahead and DWAP this case. I'll dismiss it for one of prosecution.
Okay.
Next on the court's docket, DC 23-05110, Synchrony Bank versus Christopher Hooper. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-05111, American Express National Bank versus Mark Briscoe.
Good morning, Your Honor. Stephen Endy here for plaintiff.
Good morning, Mr. Edna. What is the status of this case?
On September 27th, counsel for plaintiff e-filed a motion and order of non-suit. I believe it's in your queue or somewhere, so if you could retain it until you sign it, would be great.
All right. The court will make note that a non-suit has been filed and make sure that that order gets signed today. All right,
Great.
counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have. May I be excused?
Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, cause number DC 23-05181, State of Texas versus $22,041 in United States currency.
Good morning, Judge Purdy. Jason Mathis on behalf of plaintiff state of Texas.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Mathis. What's the status of this case?
Judge, the main claimant, the primary claimant, to which I would say 90% of this property belongs to, has been served. He has not answered. However, Judge, we're just asking for 30 days because the secondary claimant, Mr. Hall, he has not been served, but we did find a new address for him, and a request for a citation has already gone out, Judge. And just in the event we don't get him served, Judge, we do intend to separate his property and move forward with the claimant that has been served.
All right. I've reset it for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Thank you, Judge Purdy. May I be excused, Your Honor?
Thank you. Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-05497, American Express National Bank versus Eddie Ewelvon et al. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-05717. Kaidaja Dorsey versus Maria Torres.
Jennifer Reale here on behalf of the plaintiff.
All right. Well, counsel, you have gotten all of the cases with the very difficult names to pronounce this morning, but nevertheless, what's the status of this case?
This is another one where the insurance should be filing an answer on behalf of the defendant here soon. So we're just requesting another 3 weeks to 30 days.
Okay, I'll reset it for 3 weeks and you'll be notified of that new date and time. Okay, counsel?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
And thank you. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-06156, Keisha Fields versus Irving Diaz et al.
It's me again, Jennifer Reale here on behalf of the plaintiff. We have filed early this morning a motion for substitute service on one of the defendants. And so we request that we get an extension of time to be able to get the motion for substitute service granted and be able to serve the other defendant.
All right, I will reset this for 30 days. And if there's a motion for subservice on file for the court to review, I'll take a look at that today as well.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-06780, State of Texas versus $1,172.
Good morning, Your Honor. Courtney Parker for the plaintiff, State of Texas.
Good morning, Mrs. Parker. What's the status of this case?
So on this one, we issued 2 citations for the claimant, but they've both been returned unexecuted. We found a new address, and so we recently reissued a new citation. So we're just asking for additional time to try and get the claimant served.
All right, I'll reset it for 30 days, Mrs. Parker, and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Thank you. May I be excused?
Yes, you may. Take care. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-06998. Henry Gavin Glenn.
Good morning, Your Honor. Joe Griffith on behalf of the petitioner, Gavin Glenn.
Good morning, Mr. Is it Griffith?
Yes, Your
All
Honor.
right. What's the status of this case?
We have attempted service multiple times in a variety of ways and manners. I also know that the target of the petition is represented by counsel. It's a former business partner of my client, and I'm in the background trying to get resolution on all of this with him, and with the court's indulgence, a grace period of 30 days to figure it out would be very helpful, to try to get service or work something out.
Okay, and this is a Rule 202 case that is filed, petition for a Rule 202 that was filed, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, and it's filed May 25th, so I'll reset it for 30 days, but it's ending its life in my court. It's getting close to the end.
I understand, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, all right, it'll be reset for 30 days. You'll get a new notice of the next dismissal docket.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thanks so much. Next on the docket, DC 23-07033, Discover Bank versus Victoria T. Allen. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. And next on the court's docket, DC 23-07065, Discover Bank versus Tori L. Crick. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07225, Discover Bank versus Gregory M. Green. All right, hearing no announcements on that case, it too will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the docket, DC 23-07313, Discover Bank versus Mitchell McCoy. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for one of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07467, Hondacrete Ready Mix Inc. versus Michael Sloan.
Yes, Your Honor, John Fugit here for the plaintiff.
Yes, sir. What's the status of this case?
In this case, yesterday, we filed a motion for alternative service under Rule 106, filed a motion to retain as well. And we are in the process, we attempted 7 times to serve the defendant different times a day. And they have, we believe, are trying to dodge service. We're doing the 106. So I suppose I would request 30 days, a month or so, like you did with the other motion. That would probably allow us to get the motion for alternative service signed and then service out and either get an answer or move for a default.
All right. I will reset it for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I be
All right.
excused?
Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07479. This is Hobby Lobby versus Jose Bezaval Roquini. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07482 Northwest Crossing Baseline LLC versus Charla Harris.
Good morning, Your Honor. Lynn Watson appearing for plaintiff.
Good morning, Ms. Watson. Yes, who's the other appearance? I know Ms. Watson announced. Is there someone else? Okay, maybe that was just some background. Ms. Watson, what is the status of this case?
Your Honor, we believe that the defendant is evading service of process. We filed with the court a motion to retain, which has attached to it our law office record showing that we have made attempts literally every few days since this lawsuit was filed in June. We first attempted personal service at a couple of different addresses, and then we turned to attempts via mail. We just received the last outstanding mail item back on September 13th. So we have now filed a motion for substituted service, which is pending before the court. I do note that the process server's affidavit doesn't reflect therein all of the attempts that we've made to serve, so we may be doing a supplemental affidavit, although I do think that the information before the court certainly provides the grounds for the issuance of the substituted service order.
All right, I will reset this for 30 days, and I've made note to make sure that the court reviews your motion for substituted service.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I be excused?
Yes, you may. Take care. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07509, Ronald Campos Venegas versus Gregory Johnson et al. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07537, Erica Barnes versus Olga Barnes.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. Ramon Rodriguez appearing for plaintiff Erica Barnes.
Mr. Rodriguez, what's the status of the case?
Your Honor, this case is, well, let me put it this way. I'm looking for 21 to 30 days to get this case off the court's docket. There's an ancillary proceeding in the probate court. So there'll either be a motion to transfer filed to move it into the probate court where it will likely be adjudicated. However, we are in settlement discussions and believe that may actually be resolved before that's necessary. So that's why I asked for 21 to 30 days at this time, because I think within that time period, I'll either have the motion to transfer on file for your consideration and get that moved, and or the case will be settled and we'll be presenting a notice of non-suit.
All right, I've reset it for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I be excused?
Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07565, United Financial Casualty Company versus Forest Hall.
Good morning, Your Honor. Last but not least, this is my last case with you this morning. Gigi Matar here on behalf of Casualty.
All right, what's the status of this case?
Your Honor, it appears that we have located a 5th address to attempt to serve the defendant and have forwarded that information to our service processor. So just ask the court to give us a little bit of leeway to attempt this new address and to perfect service. If we do not, at that point, we may be able to file a 106, but we just don't have enough information yet for that.
All right, I will reset it for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Honor. And I am
Thank you.
With your.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care.
Next on the court's docket, you two, DC 23-07591, Discover Bank versus Rochelle Rios. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07639, US Bank National Association versus Luis Sanchez. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07691, Centra Funding LLC versus GES Transports LLC et al.
Rebecca Brown for plaintiff, Your Honor.
Yes, Mrs. Brown, what's the status of this case?
I am waiting on the affidavit for the motion for default judgment to submit it. The Secretary of State Whitney certificate just got filed 10 days ago. So today is the first day we can actually submit it to you. I just checked my email and my client said that their notary will be in this afternoon. So they're hoping to get me that affidavit. And as soon as I have it, I'll submit the DJ.
All right, I'm going to reset it just for 2 weeks because I'm showing the default is overdue, but we'll reset it for 2 weeks. You'll be notified of the new date and time. And assuming you get your default judgment in by that time, then you won't need to appear, but I'll reset it for 2 weeks, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. May I be excused?
All right. Yes, you may. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07758, Shirley Lawton et al. Versus Christopher Bernard Johnson et al.
Good morning, Your Honor. William Mahir on behalf of the plaintiffs.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mejia, what is the status of this case?
Yes, Your Honor. We believe the defendants are evading service. Recently, our process server has discovered and got a phone number that's valid for them and has spoken to defendant Johnson and some social media accounts, which are confirmed and verified to be theirs. We have filed a 106 motion for your consideration and a motion to retain with the court as well, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, I will reset this matter for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I be excused?
Yes, you may. Thanks so much. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07908, Mario Mata versus Aaron Falhay. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. And next on the court's docket, DC 23-07911.
Dan Young for the plaintiff.
All right, Mr. Young, what's the status of this case?
Your Honor, we've had some difficulty locating the defendant. We've tried 2 different addresses for service. We're now working on a 3rd address, and we would ask for a little more time to try to get that the defendant served. Again, we've been diligent, but we simply haven't been able to locate the defendant yet.
All right. I'll reset it for 30 days and you'll be notified of the new date and time. All right, counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next on the court's docket, DC 23-07961, Citibank versus Shirley K. Wethy. Hearing no announcements on that case, it will be dismissed for want of prosecution. That concludes the court's 95th District Court's dismissal docket. I know there are 2 people remaining on the court's dismissal docket. Mr. Lynn or Mrs. Lynn, did you have a case that you are here on?
Yes, Judge, it's not on the dismissal docket. This was a minor.
This is the 9 o'clock, the prove up?
9:30. I have it as 9:30 on the Zoom.
Okay. All right. Are you here on the 9:30 as well, Mr. Mills?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Then that let me know. Done with the dismissal docket. Let me move on to my motion docket. So give me one moment here. And I apologize. We were running a little bit behind this morning, but we will get you all going. All right, we are on the record, counsel, in cause number DC 21-08743, Ashanti Coleman et al. Versus Rosino Paradiso. Can I have you all to announce on the record your name and who you represent in this action?
Yes, Your Honor. Cody Lynn with the Lynn Law Firm representing the plaintiffs.
All right.
Mitchell Mills here on behalf of defendant Rosina Paradiso.
All right. Thank you so much for the announcements. I understand what is set this morning is a motion to appoint a guardian ad litem in this case. Is that correct?
Actually, a motion to waive the guardian item, Your
To
Honor.
waive it. Okay. Who wants to take the lead in telling me why we don't need a guardian ad litem, and maybe just provide me a little bit of background as to the ages and just the basis?
Sure, I'll be happy to jump in, Your Honor. So this case involved an auto accident with a mother and her minor daughter. The mother sustained the brunt of the injuries and had the extensive medical treatment. We filed suit. We were able to resolve the case amicably with opposing counsel and the defendant. And then we had agreed to just disperse the case accordingly. The minor was getting a very low amount, $2,500 in particular. The net proceeds to the minor resulted in $1,000. We had submitted this to the court back in November last year, just in full disclosure. The issue is that we had already dispersed the money 6 months prior in May of 2022. Not really thinking about, the court approval. So that was our fault, and apologies from the court for that. But we kind of working backwards now that the money has already been dispersed. And again, it was such a low amount, which is why we request the court to waive the ad litem.
All right. Counsel for the defendant, anything to add in that regard?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. And counsel for the plaintiff, I pulled up a copy of the proposed order. The injuries to this minor, can you tell the court a little bit about the injuries to the minor? I know you said mom was the person that got most injured, but what type of injuries did this minor incur?
Sure, Your Honor. The minor, to be exact, was only 3.5 years old at the time of the accident. So the mom just, did a typical mom thing, which is to get her checked out. Didn't necessarily think anything was wrong with her, just that she'd been involved in the accident. My wife would do the same thing, for the record, so I'm not criticizing that. I think that was a prudent choice, but all she had was a quick, kind of in and out of the emergency room. They only billed her $366, which has already been satisfied through health insurance. So I didn't even want to call it soft tissue because I don't even think it was that. Right. And then she just had her checked out with her pediatrician 3 days after the accident as well. And there was no follow-up treatment whatsoever. So the total medicals on the minor for both the emergency and the pediatrician was only $948. And again, all that is zeroed out, and there's no outstanding balances.
All right, counsel, I will grant the relief that has been requested. I've signed a copy of the order that has been uploaded. I will make sure that gets scanned and up on Odyssey by the close of business today. Is there anything further before we conclude this hearing?
No, Your Honor. Thank you for your time and attention. May we be excused?
Yes, take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you,
You
Your
too.
Honor.
Bye-bye. One is a All right, counsel, Mr. Wade.
Yes, Judge.
All right, you can hear the court okay. Are we waiting on anybody else to appear at this hearing this morning, Mr. Wade?
I was under the impression that plaintiff's counsel would be appearing, Judge.
Yeah, my Friday docket is by Zoom. We don't have, typically some people get confused. They might show up, but we don't have anybody here in the courtroom. So this is not your motion for continuance, correct?
It is defendant's motion for continuance, Judge.
All right, and are you opposed?
No, we actually, as an update, we have scheduled mediation with Gary Berman to occur on October the 20th. And it took some time to coordinate that with plaintiff's counsel's office, but I'm here to report that we finally have a mediation scheduled.
All right, why don't I go ahead and call this case, Mr. Wade? We're on the record, DC 21-02181. This is Marina Ekman versus Equinox Park Place, Inc. Can I have you to just announce on the record your name and who you represent?
Yes, Judge. Reese Wade for the defendant, Equinox Park Place, Inc., doing business as Equinox Fitness Club.
All right, and let the record reflect the plaintiff has not appeared at our Zoom video conference that was set for hearing today. But what is the defendant's motion to continue the trial setting? And Mr. Wade, can you just provide the court with an update? I believe you mentioned that you all now have mediation scheduled for October 20th of this month.
That is correct, Judge. The parties are scheduled to mediate with Gary Berman on October the 20th.
All right. And when is your trial that was set in this matter? When were you all scheduled to go to trial?
Monday before this week or last week, yes.
Okay. So you just want to make sure it didn't get carried. Do you know how much longer you guys might need in order? Obviously, mediation may resolve, but if it doesn't, is there more work that has to be done in order to get your case ready for trial?
Not from the defendant's perspective, Judge.
Right. Plaintiff they have burden of proof. So, all right. Well, I will grant your continuance. I do not have a date to give you for trial right now. What's going to happen at the conclusion of my morning hearings, we will identify a date on the trial calendar. You will receive, if you're the attorney of record in the case, you'll receive an electronic notice of your new trial setting, but I'll push it maybe 60 to 90 days out.
That sounds great, Judge. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, good morning. Can you hear the court okay?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
All right, let me go ahead and call this case. We are on the record in cause number DC 23-08270 in re Brian Donnell Brown Jr. Can you let us know your name, ma'am, and if you are representing yourself in this action?
I'm Brianna Brown. You saying like my name, my real name?
Well, it is, yes, we have your petition here under your real name. I
Yes.
understand that you are asking the court to change your gender, so there may be another name that comes from that. But if you will just state the name that the petition is filed in, and then if you can let the court know what you would like to be referred to as today, then we'll proceed with the hearing that way.
Yes, my name is Brian Darnell Brown Jr. I would like to be called Brianna.
Okay.
In court.
All right. So, and it's going to be Brianna Brown. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. And you have filed a petition with this court. Hold on one moment. Let me just pull it up. You have filed a petition with the court to change your name and your gender identification from Brian. Your current legal name is Brian Donnell Jr. Brown, and you are asking this court to change your name to Brianna Dior Brown. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the reason that you are seeking this name change is in line with your sex and gender change from male to female. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And let me just take a look. All right, and I have your certification on file from Austin that basically certifies that you don't have any type of criminal history as it relates with the name of Brian Donnell Jr. Of course, we want to make sure that if you're changing your name, you're not doing it to try to avoid any type of criminal prosecution or any type of creditors. So I see that that has been uploaded with the court. So your criminal history is on file. And the only other thing that I am not seeing, do you have a medical note from your doctor or therapist that you've been seeing regarding this change? Ms.
Yeah,
Brown?
it should have been inside of there, the hope letter. If they should have it.
Okay, hold on a second. It's included after the petition, so thank you for telling me that. Give me just one moment to let me take a look at that, okay? And it's the Hope Wellness, Health and Wellness Center, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, Mrs. Brown. So I have reviewed the medical documentation consistent with providing patient care for Brianna Brown, and also known as Mr. Brian Brown, who is seeking a gender identification change with regard to the petition that has been filed. I have a copy of the proposed order that you have filed with the court. I will be granting the relief that has been requested, and I will be signing the order, and this order will be uploaded and available on the court's e-filing system. By the close of business today, you ought to see the order that's there and be able to print that out and get it where it needs to be in order to have a new birth certificate issued. Is there anything further, Mrs. Brown?
No, ma'am.
All right, well, good luck to you, Mrs. Brianna Brown.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care and have a good day.
Mhm.
All right, take care.
Judge, I think the 1045 spot submission.
All right, good morning, council. Going to go ahead and call your case at this time. We are on the record in cause number DC 22-06101. JUP 55 LLC versus 5/15 LLC et al. May I have the parties to briefly announce on the record? Let me know your name and who you represent in this action.
Good morning, Your Honor. Frank Hill for the plaintiff here, JUP 55 LLC.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Corwin Davis for the corporate defendants in the matter.
All right, good morning, Mr. Davis. Any other announcements? All right, the other individuals that are here on the video conference, are you all parties to this case or just witnesses in the case? If you're a party to the case, I need you to announce your name and if you're representing yourself or if you're represented by counsel.
Gabriel Langley.
Mr. Cole, I'm sorry, let's start with Mr. Cole. Anthony Cole, if you could go ahead and announce.
Hi, I'm Anthony Cole. I'm representing myself in this case.
All right, thank you. All right, and then let's go with, is it Mr. Langley? If you can announce now.
Gabriel Langley representing myself.
All right, thank you, Mr. Langley. Is it Mrs. Langley? Mika Langley.
That is correct, ma'am. Mika Langley representing myself.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Langley. And then there's not a name, but there's an iPhone user and you are in your car, sir. If you wouldn't mind announcing for me.
Derek Duncan, and I'm representing myself.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Duncan. And then lastly, we have someone identified on a Samsung. Sir, if you wouldn't mind identifying yourself.
I'm Charles Langley representing myself.
Okay, thank you so much. This is an agreed motion for continuance and a request for a scheduling order. This is filed by the plaintiffs and the defendants. So who would like to take the lead in presenting the court with your continuance?
Happy to do it, Your Honor, or Corwin, whatever works.
Whatever works. I'm ready to go.
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry, go ahead, Corwin.
All right, Mr. Davis, let me hear from you.
Yes, Your Honor. We filed this continuance, Your Honor. I recently got involved in the case a couple months ago. As you can tell, there's a lot of parties involved. Up until a few months ago, the corporate defendants technically weren't represented by an attorney. So I believe per the rules that's obviously not allowed. So because of that, Your Honor, we've been engaged in some pretty good faith negotiations up until now. And given the impending trial deadline, we're requesting that the court push back that trial deadline. So one, we can continue those negotiations, but also in the event that we're unable to resolve the dispute, engage in some discovery as well.
Okay, and Mr. Hill, anything to add to what Mr. Davis has represented to the court?
No, Your Honor, that is our position as well. We understand there are a lot of moving parts, and we've been trying to work harmoniously to reach an amicable resolution, and also to ensure that counsel has plenty of time to take discovery and do the things that he needs to do to get the case in order in the event that the amicable resolution can be reached.
All right, and it appears as though there's a scheduling order asking for a May 7th trial date, a non-jury trial of May 7th, 2024. Is that correct?
Yes, we filed an agreed proposed amended scheduling order to the court a couple weeks ago.
All right. Okay, I will grant the relief that has been requested. I can't confirm whether or not that May 7th date will be the trial date. The court will be reviewing its trial calendar. We will try to put you close to that date. If that is not the scheduling order that comes from the 95th, there may be a need for me to make a few interlineations on that scheduling order. If there is, I will go ahead and do so and make sure that it gets uploaded. But typically in the 95th, I ensure that dispositive motions are set and heard 30 days before trial and things of that nature. So I just want to make sure it comports with what I expect in order to prepare for it to go to trial. But you should receive, both counsel of record as well as the pro se individuals that are on the Zoom video conference this morning, a new notice of trial setting. It will go out electronically. That's assuming we have some type of electronic information for the pro ses that are appearing. Any questions for the court?
None, Your Honor.
Mr. Hill?
No, Your Honor, no questions. Thank you.
All right, I'll go ahead and get that uploaded, and that concludes our hearing.
May we
Thank
be
you so much,
excused?
Your Honor.
Yes, you may. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.